Introduction. Let's think about the different stages of writing an introduction. So the first stage is thinking about the question, analyzing the question, understanding the question. It's impossible to answer a question if you don't understand it. That sounds very, very obvious and very simple, but it's so true. I look at 20, 30, 40, 50 essays some days. And I've been doing that for years. And one of the main problems is not that students don't know how to write, although that is a problem sometimes, but many of your problems stem from the fact that either you don't take enough time to understand the question, or you don't spend enough time, or you don't follow the steps to analyze a question and fully understand it. So once you've done that, then you need to decide your answers. So before you start writing, you need to really have it clear in your mind what you are doing before you start writing. Because if you don't, your essay is going to be a bit of a mess. Then we're going to think of ideas. So we're going to develop our ideas. And you'll notice that these three stages, these are stages without you having a pen or a pencil in your hand. You know, you can have a pen or a pencil in your hand and making little notes, but really this is all just mental process. This is you really just thinking. This is the thinking stage, a stage that many of you neglect because you feel that you're under pressure, you feel you don't have time, but it's an absolutely crucial, essential stage. Then we start picking up our pencil or pen and start planning. We start writing things down. So we use the structure, we use the paragraph structure, we use the sentence by sentence structure for each part of the essay to take our ideas, the things that we have been thinking about, and putting them down on paper into a plan. And then once we have done that, once we have developed a roadmap for our essay, then we can start writing our introduction. So steps 1 to 4 are before we start writing our essay. And then step 5, once we have a plan, then we can start writing. Okay, so the first stage is question analysis, thinking about the question. The writing test is not just a writing test, it is a thinking and writing test. If you immediately open your paper and start writing immediately because you think that you're going to run out of time, you are going to get in a lot of trouble. You need to dedicate some time at the beginning to think about the question, plan your answer, and then start writing. Think about it this way. If you were going to New York City tomorrow, you're going for a job interview in New York City, and your plane lands, you get to the airport. Would you find your destination quicker with Google Maps or without Google Maps? Imagine if you just left the airport and started running towards New York City. Would you get lost pretty quickly? But if you had Google Maps or you had Uber, for example, they'd be able to take you directly to where you need to go pretty quickly. This is the same as someone who doesn't think and doesn't plan versus somebody who does think and does plan. Thinking and planning is like having Google Maps for your IELTS essay. It might sound like a silly analogy, but my students seem to really like that analogy, and it does make sense. So the first stage is understanding what the question is about. That might sound very, very simple, but just think about what the topic is, and then go a little bit deeper and think about what the specific things they want you to talk about within that topic. So for example, you might get a question about the environment. So the topic would be the environment, but then once you look at it deeper, they don't want you to just talk generally about the environment. They might want you to talk about a specific thing related to air pollution, for example. So air pollution would be different from water pollution, for example. So thinking about what the general topic is, and then looking a little bit deeper what the specific content is, what they want you to write about. And then looking at the instruction words. What is it that they want you to do? Do they want you to give your opinion? Do they want you to discuss the advantages and disadvantages? Do they want you to talk about problems and solutions? You must do what they ask you to do. So let's look at this question to analyze this question. So if I was analyzing this question, the first thing I would think about is, okay, what topic is this about? Okay, robots working. Okay, so it's generally about technology. But I just don't write everything I know about technology. What I do is I have a look at it. Okay, what are the more specific keywords? Okay, so it's about robotics. Okay, so it's about robotics doing work for humans, basically. So that's what the specific things they want us to talk about. Okay, so I've understood this. Now I need to think about the instruction words. What do they want me to do with this statement? Well, there's two things they want you to do. They want you to answer this question. Why do you think this is happening? So you have to clearly state why you think this is happening. But it doesn't stop there. They want you then to say if you think it's a positive or negative development. So once we've understood the question and we've understood what they want us to do, the first thing that I always get my students to do is to make a decision on their answer. Make a decision about how they're going to answer this question. So how do we do that? So make a decision early on. This will mean you think and you plan clearly. One of the worst things that you can do, guys, is start your essay without having a clear idea about how you're going to answer it. Many of the students that I work with, they email me after their test and they say, oh, I changed my answer halfway through. Like, is that okay? Will I be okay? It's like, no, you've probably failed because you didn't decide early on. You didn't make a concrete plan. You should never start your essay without knowing what to do. It's like, running into New York City without having any idea where you're going. You're going to get pretty lost. And a writing is a reflection of your thinking. So I stole this quote from somebody called Tim Ferriss, who I follow online, and he's a writer, and he said this, and it really resonated with me because the students that I work with who are very confused about what they think about a question always write a very confusing essay. Students who think clearly about what they're going to write a very clear, easy to understand essay. And a huge part of your overall mark is coherence and cohesion and answering the question clearly. So that's very, very important. Here are some things that you should consider when deciding how you should answer. Keep it simple, guys. Do not overcomplicate things. Do not, as I say, your writing is a reflection of your thinking. If you overcomplicate everything and your thoughts are very, very complex, then you're going to write an overly complicated, confusing essay. The simplest, most straightforward answer is the best. One of the things that I find very difficult to convince students of when we start working together is that the simpler you make your essay, the clearer it becomes, the better it becomes, the higher marks you're going to get. Many of my students find that very difficult to accept because when you fail something or when you get a low score, you automatically assume that you need to complicate things or make things more advanced or make things more complex when the opposite is really true. And I guarantee many of you right now are thinking that doesn't make any sense. How could making something simpler get me a higher mark? Guys, I wouldn't lie to you. I gave this advice to my wife when she was doing the IELTS test. I give this advice to all of my VIP students. This really does work. Many of you won't believe me. That's fine. But once you start realizing this, then it is really powerful. It's more powerful than anything else. And also, when you're deciding your answer, write about the things that you can write about. Remember that you're going to have to take these ideas and explain them, support them with examples. Don't try and think of a really complex idea if you can't explain that idea. So if I